So, you're thinking about starting a business in Bangladesh. That's fantastic. But let's be real, the maze of permits and licenses can feel, well, a little overwhelming. In this explainer, we're going to give you a clear roadmap to cut through all that confusion and turn a complicated process into a simple, step-by-step guide.
And listen, there's every reason to be excited. With its steady growth and a massive domestic market, Bangladesh has become a serious hub for business. We're talking about booming industries, manufacturing, IT, pharmaceuticals, you name it. The opportunities for new entrepreneurs are just huge.
So, you're ready to jump in and grab a piece of that action? Awesome. But to really succeed, you've got to play by the rules. And that means understanding and navigating the country's official regulatory framework. That's the challenge we're going to tackle together today.
I want you to think of this whole process as a journey, and we've laid out the entire path visually to serve as your roadmap for this explainer.
Okay, so take a good look at this, because this flowchart is basically our guide. This is the chronological path we're going to follow. It starts with those big foundational decisions, like your business structure, and takes you all the way to getting the final operational permits. And here's a little insider tip for you. While it looks like a straight line, just be prepared for this process to take several weeks, maybe even a few months, depending on how complex your business is. So yeah, patience is definitely your best friend here.
All right, let's get started with step 1, laying down your company's legal foundation. Before you can do literally anything else, you have to create the legal bedrock for your entire enterprise.
And that foundation begins with the Registrar of Joint Stock Companies and Firms, or as pretty much everyone calls it, the RJSC. Registering here is what officially makes your business a legal entity. Seriously, without this, you can't open a corporate bank account, you can't sign contracts, you can't operate legally. That RJS registration, it's absolutely non-negotiable. Okay, so your company legally exists. Now what? Well, now you need permission to actually operate. And that's where the trade license comes in. It's a mandatory permit for every single business, issued by the local city corporation or municipality. It basically gives you the green light to do business in one specific area.
And here's where the paperwork slams right into the real world. You can't get that trade license without a physical business address. This isn't just some box you tick on a form. It forces you to make one of your first huge strategic decisions. Where is your business going to call home?
For most businesses, that home is going to be in Dhaka, the country's commercial heart. Now, your physical address isn't just a location. It is the key that unlocks everything else: your trade license, your VAT registration, even your bank accounts. And in high-demand areas like Gulshan or Banani, those rental costs can be one of your biggest startup expenses right out of the gate. The good news is, the market is getting way more organized, with digital platforms making it easier to find commercial spaces. Still, getting this decision right and getting it right early on is absolutely critical.
Okay, so legal identity, check. Physical address, check. You're ready for the next critical phase, plugging your business into the country's financial and tax system.
This table right here perfectly summarizes the essentials you just cannot skip. We've already talked about the RJSC and the trade license. Now let's add the TIN, or Taxpayer Identification Number, from the National Board of Revenue. You need that TIN for pretty much any formal financial activity. And if you're selling goods or services that are taxable, you also need to register for VAT, which gets you something called a Business Identification Number, or BIN, so you can issue legal invoices.
Now that we've got the universal requirements out of the way, the path starts to fork. The next set of licenses you need depends entirely on your specific industry and what your business actually does.
And this bar chart illustrates that point perfectly. See? The licensing journey is not one size fits all. If you have a consulting business, as you can see, the regulatory burden is relatively low. But as you start moving into things like manufacturing or import/export, whoa, the complexity just skyrockets.
Let's break that down to make it super clear. An IT services firm has a much simpler path than a factory, which has to worry about stuff like environmental clearances and fire safety. An import-export business, you're dealing with customs regulators. A pharmaceutical company, you've got to answer to the Directorate General of Drug Administration. So the main takeaway here is, you have to know your sector, inside and out.
And here are just a few examples of those specialized licenses you might run into. If you're trading internationally, you'll need an import or export registration certificate. Are you a foreign investor? You'll probably be working with the Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, also known as BIDA. Building a factory? Then you'll definitely need an environmental clearance certificate and fire safety approval. Each one of these is a critical checkpoint for that specific industry.
So after pulling all these different pieces together, what's the ultimate goal here?
Well, it's all about building a compliant and trustworthy foundation for your business's success.
All right, let's quickly boil this all down into what you really need to take away from this. First, plan your office location and get all your documents in order right from the very beginning. Second, remember your fundamentals. RJSE registration, a trade license, and a TIN are your keys to the kingdom. Third, understand your industry-specific requirements. Trust me, they are not optional. And finally, try to see compliance not as a burden, but as a strategy to lower your risk and build an amazing reputation.
And that brings us to our final and I think most powerful thought, which is captured perfectly by this quote. Getting properly licensed is about so much more than just avoiding fines. It's a message. It tells partners, customers, and investors that you are a serious, reliable business. It's how you build the trust that becomes the absolute groundwork for long-term success in Bangladesh's exciting economy.